My grandson smiled at me like I was his whole world while he drained my bank account dry, taking every penny I'd saved over 43 years of teaching elementary school. He thought I was too senile to notice, too weak to fight back, too close to death to matter. But I wasn't losing my mind. I was keeping track. And while he played the perfect grandson in public, buying luxury cars with my retirement fund, I was crafting something special, something he'd only discover when they read my will out loud. This is how I taught my final lesson to the boy who confused love with greed. I'm writing this from my study, surrounded by photo albums and bank statements, evidence of a life well lived and a betrayal I never saw coming. My name is Eleanor Whitman, and at 79 years old, I've learned that the greatest thieves sometimes share your blood. Marcus was 22 when he destroyed everything we'd built together. Handsome, charming, with his grandfather's eyes and absolutely none of his integrity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You need to understand what happened first, why I did what I did, and why I'd do it again. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I say it's better served through proper legal channels with a notary present. When someone steals your life's work, you don't scream or beg. You plan, you document, you wait, and then you leave them something they'll never forget. I used to believe family was everything. I poured my heart into raising Marcus after his parents died in that accident. Gave him my guest room, my time, my trust. I thought I was building a legacy of love. Instead, I was funding his apprenticeship in deception. The first time I noticed money missing, I blamed myself. Old age, confusion, maybe I'd forgotten about a withdrawal. The second time, I made excuses. The third time, I installed cameras he didn't know about. By the fourth time, I had enough evidence to send him to prison. But I had something better in mind. See, Marcus thought he was smart, transferring money in small amounts, manipulating my trust, playing the devoted grandson while bleeding me dry. What he didn't know was that every Thursday, while he thought I was at my book club, I was actually meeting with my estate attorney, Patricia Chen. We were building something together, a will unlike any other. A document that would teach one final lesson to someone who thought teachers were too old to learn new tricks. The morning I discovered the full extent of his theft, I sat in Harold's old chair, our wedding photo in my hands. "Help me be strong," I whispered to my late husband's image. Then I picked up the phone and set my plan in motion. What Marcus failed to understand was simple. I'd spent 4 decades managing classrooms full of children who thought they were cleverer than their teacher. I'd seen every trick, every lie, every manipulation. And I'd learned that the best education sometimes comes from letting students face the consequences of their choices. I spent 43 years shaping young minds at Riverside Elementary in Cedar Falls, Oregon. Every morning at 6:30, I'd unlock my classroom door, breathing in the smell of chalk dust and possibility. Those weren't just students to me. They were my extended family, especially since Harold and I never had children of our own. When Harold passed in '98, I thought my world would collapse. Heart attack at 59, right in the middle of building a deck for our neighbor's disabled son. That was Harold. Always helping, always building something for someone else. I inherited his life insurance, his pension, and his philosophy. Money meant nothing if it wasn't used to lift others up. So I kept teaching, but I also started tutoring for free. Bought supplies for kids whose parents were struggling. Paid for Timothy Morrison's insulin when his dad lost his job. Covered lunch debts without anyone knowing. Created a scholarship fund at the high school. My salary wasn't much, but combined with Harold's benefits, I could make miracles happen in small doses. Then came the call that changed everything. My daughter Sarah, my only child, and her husband Robert, gone in an instant. A rainy night, a distracted driver, 2 lives ended. Their son Marcus, just 11 years old, suddenly an orphan. There was no question, no hesitation. I drove 14 hours straight to Phoenix to bring him home. I sold my 4-bedroom house, moved into a smaller 2-bedroom closer to the middle school, put the difference into a college fund for Marcus, learned to cook for a growing boy, attended every baseball game, every science fair, every parent-teacher conference. When kids teased him about living with his grandmother, I taught him to hold his head high. Money comes and goes, I'd tell him while balancing my checkbook at the kitchen table, making sure he saw me planning, saving, being responsible. But family? Family is the only real wealth we have. I retired at 70 to care for him full-time during his high school years, cashed out part of my retirement to pay for his SAT prep courses. When he got into state university, I cried harder than the day he came to live with me. My savings account showed $234,000. My entire life's work, Harold's legacy, everything I'd scrimped and saved. This is all for your future, I told Marcus at his high school graduation, showing him the bank statement. For your education, your dreams, everything you want to build. He hugged me then, tears in his eyes. I'll make you proud, Grandma. I'll take care of you like you took care of me. Those words would echo in my mind later, taking on a meaning I never expected. The first sign of trouble came the winter Marcus turned 22. I'd been having dizzy spells. Nothing serious, just blood pressure issues, the doctor said. But when I fainted in the grocery store and woke up in the hospital, Marcus appeared at my bedside looking like opportunity had just knocked on his door. Grandma, we need to talk about your finances, he said, holding my hand with practiced concern. What if something happens and you can't manage things? We should add me to your accounts, just as a precaution. It made sense at the time. I was 79, living alone, and had just cracked my head on the frozen food section floor. What if next time was worse? What if I needed someone to pay my bills, handle my medications, make sure everything ran smoothly? You're right, I said, squeezing his hand back. Let's go to the bank tomorrow. He smiled then, but looking back, it wasn't relief I saw in his eyes. It was calculation. We went to Cedar Falls Credit Union the next morning. I'd been banking there for 37 years. Martha, the head teller, had been one of my students. She looked concerned when I added Marcus as a joint account holder with full access. Are you sure about this, Mrs. Whitman? She asked quietly while Marcus was distracted by his phone. There are other options, power of attorney, limited access. It's fine, I assured her. This is my grandson. He's all I have left. The paperwork took 10 minutes. 10 minutes to hand over 43 years of careful saving. Marcus was charming, chatting with Martha about her kids, remembering details I'd told him years ago. He had that gift, making people feel seen, important. I taught him that. That night he cooked dinner for me. Pot roast with carrots and potatoes, Harold's favorite meal. We talked about his plans after graduation. Law school, he said. Maybe corporate law. Help small businesses navigate regulations. I gave him $5,000 that night for LSAT prep courses. You don't have to do this, he said, but his hand was already reaching for the check. What else is it for? I replied, patting his cheek. You're my future. The dizzy spells improved with medication. Within a month, I was back to my normal routine: book club, grocery shopping, volunteering at the library. But something had shifted. Marcus called more often, visited more frequently, always asking about my health, my doctor's appointments, whether I was taking my pills. Just checking on you, he'd say. Can't be too careful at your age. At my age, like 79 was the same as dead. Like every day I lived was borrowed time he was waiting to collect on. Marcus graduated that spring with honors. I sat in the auditorium, tears streaming down my face, watching my grandson walk across that stage. Business degree, just like his grandfather would have wanted. The boy I'd raised from nothing had become a man with everything ahead of him. The next phase of his plan began at his graduation dinner. We were at Rossetti's, the Italian place where Harold proposed to me 57 years earlier. Marcus had insisted on the location, said he wanted to honor family tradition. "Grandma," he began over tiramisu, "I've been thinking about your living situation." I set down my spoon. "What about it?" "Well, you're alone in that house. The stairs, the maintenance, the yard work. What if you fell again? What if something happened and no one was there?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Dr. Morrison says I'm healthy as a horse." Marcus leaned forward, his face all concern. "But for how long? Wouldn't it be better to plan now while you're still capable?" Capable. Another word that stung more than he knew. "I've been researching senior communities," he continued, pulling out his phone. "Not nursing homes, luxury retirement communities. Look at this one, Sunset Gardens. They have a pool, activities, medical staff on site. You'd make friends, have support." The pictures looked nice. Happy seniors playing cards, doing water aerobics, sharing meals in an elegant dining room. Nothing like the place where my friend Dorothy withered away. "It's expensive," I said. "That's the beauty of it," Marcus smiled. "If we sell your house, between that and your savings, you'd be set for life. No more worrying about property taxes, repairs, any of that. I could manage the sale, handle all the details. You wouldn't have to lift a finger." I should have heard the calculation in his voice, should have seen the spreadsheet behind his eyes. But all I heard was my grandson wanting to take care of me. "Let me think about it," I said. "Of course," he agreed quickly, too quickly. "But Grandma, I also want to talk about something else. I got a job offer." My heart swelled. "That's wonderful. Where?" "Davidson Investments. Starting salary of $60,000, full benefits, but..." He paused dramatically. "I need to look the part. First impressions, you know? I need a better car, professional wardrobe, maybe a small apartment near the office." "How much?" I asked, already reaching for my purse. $15,000 would cover everything. I'd pay you back with my first few paychecks, I swear." 15,000. A drop in the bucket compared to what I had. What harm could it do? This was an investment in his future, our future. The last investment I'd ever make in him, though I didn't know it then. The theft began small, almost invisible. $500 here for emergency car repairs. $1,200 there for mandatory professional development courses. Always with promises to repay. Always with elaborate explanations that made perfect sense. I kept a notebook, writing down each loan, though Marcus laughed when he saw it. "You don't need to track this, Grandma. Family doesn't keep score." But by September, the withdrawals had changed. No longer requests, just money disappearing. $3,000 on a Tuesday, $5,500 on a Friday. When I called the bank, confused, they reminded me that Marcus had full access. It must be for his job, I told myself. Investment banking probably requires initial capital. I called Marcus to ask. He answered on the third ring, music blaring in the background. "Oh, those?" "Yeah, Grandma, I moved some money to a high-yield investment account. Better returns than sitting in checking. I'll show you the statements next time I visit." He didn't visit. Not for 3 weeks. When he finally appeared, it was with shopping bags from stores I'd never heard of and a watch that caught the light like Harold's never could. "How's the new job?" I asked. "Great," he said quickly. "Really great. Hey, I've been meaning to talk to you about Sunset Gardens. They have an opening, but we need to move fast." "I haven't decided yet." "Grandma." His voice turned sharp, then immediately softened. "I'm worried about you. Yesterday, Mrs. Patterson said she saw you at the store looking confused. And last week, you called me 3 times asking the same question." None of that was true. I shop every Thursday at 2 p.m., sharp as ever. And I keep a detailed call log. I'd called him once that week, and he hadn't answered. "Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "This is exactly what I mean," he interrupted. "Memory issues, confusion. Grandma, I love you too much to watch you decline. Let me help." That night, I couldn't sleep. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. The next morning, I went to the bank. Martha wasn't there. She'd been transferred, the new teller said. I asked for my account statements for the past 6 months. The blood drained from my face as I read. $127,000. Gone. Transferred to accounts I didn't recognize. Spent on charges I never made. Luxury car leases, Vegas trips, designer clothes, restaurant bills that cost more than my monthly groceries. My hands shook as I asked for a meeting with the bank manager. He looked at me with pity. "Mrs. Whitman, Marcus is a joint holder. These are all legal transactions. If you want to remove him from the account—" "Yes," I whispered. "Remove him immediately." "He'll need to sign the paperwork too," the manager said apologetically. "Both parties have to agree." The trap had already closed. I confronted Marcus that evening. He came over wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension, smelling like cologne I couldn't pronounce. "Sit down," I said, my teacher voice surprising us both. "Explain the missing money." His face cycled through emotions, surprise, indignation, then settling on wounded innocence. "Grandma, I told you, investments, for our future." "Show me the statements." "They're electronic. I'll email them." "Show me now, on your phone." He stood up, pacing. "I can't believe you're interrogating me like some criminal. After everything I've done for you." "What have you done for me, Marcus?" "I'm trying to secure your future. That money sitting in low-interest accounts was losing value. I'm multiplying it." "By buying Ferraris?" His face changed then. The mask slipped, just for a second, and I saw something cold underneath. "That's a company car, for client meetings. You wouldn't understand. I understand that you've taken $127,000 without asking." "It's my money too," he snapped. "You said so yourself. Everything I have is yours, sweetheart." His mimicry of my voice was cruel, mocking. "For your education, for your future, not for my life," he was shouting now. "Do you know what it's like being the kid raised by his grandmother? Wearing Walmart clothes while everyone else had Nike? Driving a 15-year-old Honda while my roommates got BMWs? I earned this." "You earned it?" I stood too, my legs shaky but my voice steady. "You earned 43 years of my labor? You're going to die anyway." The words exploded out of him. "What are you saving it for? Another 10 years? 20? I have my whole life ahead of me." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus's face flushed, perhaps realizing he'd said too much. But he didn't apologize. Instead, he straightened his expensive tie. "I'm trying to help you, Grandma. Sunset Gardens is perfect. You'll be happy there, safe, cared for, and the house sale will replenish everything. Get out," I said quietly. "Don't be dramatic. Get out." He left, slamming the door. I sank into Harold's old recliner, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. "What do I do now?" I asked his smiling face. That night, I called Patricia Chen, now one of the city's best estate attorneys. We'd kept in touch over the years, holiday cards, occasional coffee. "Patricia," I said when she answered, "I need your help. And I need to move quickly." She came over the next morning with coffee and a legal pad. As I told her everything, her face grew increasingly grim. "We're going to make this right, Mrs. Whitman. I promise you that." Patricia and I worked like conspirators planning a heist in reverse. Every Tuesday and Thursday, while Marcus thought I was at book club or the senior center, I was in Patricia's office, building my case and crafting my plan. "We can't get the money back," Patricia explained. "Joint account means he had legal access, but we can make sure he doesn't get anything more." First, we froze what remained of my accounts, about $107,000 that Marcus hadn't yet touched. We opened new accounts at a different bank, ones he didn't know existed. We documented every withdrawal, every purchase, creating a paper trail that told its own story. I hired a private investigator, Jimmy Torres, recommended by Patricia. "I want to know everything," I told him. "Where the money went, what he's doing, who he's doing it with." Jimmy's reports were thorough and heartbreaking. Marcus hadn't started any job at Davidson Investments. They'd never heard of him. He was living in a luxury apartment downtown, telling people he was a wealth manager working with family money. The Ferrari was leased under my name, without my knowledge. He'd been forging my signature. "That's fraud," Patricia said excitedly. "We can work with that." But I didn't want him arrested. That felt too simple, too quick. I wanted something that would last longer, cut deeper. A lesson that would follow him for years. "Tell me about irrevocable trusts," I said to Patricia one afternoon. She raised an eyebrow. "Planning something specific?" "Marcus seems to think my money is his birthright. I want to show him what inheritance really means." We spent weeks crafting the perfect plan. I liquidated some bonds Harold had left me, money Marcus didn't know about. I sold my jewelry, except for my wedding ring. Every penny went into the strategy. Meanwhile, I played the part Marcus expected. When he called, less frequently now, I sounded tired, confused. I asked him to repeat things. I forgot conversations we'd had. "I'm worried about you," he said during one call, though he sounded hopeful rather than concerned. "Maybe we should revisit Sunset Gardens." "Maybe you're right," I sighed. "I do get confused sometimes." I could practically hear him salivating through the phone. If I seemed mentally incompetent, he could push for power of attorney, control everything. He started visiting again, always with brochures for retirement communities, always steering conversations toward my declining health. I let him think he was winning. I complained about managing bills, about forgetting medications. I left notes around the house when he visited, reminders for things any sharp person would remember. Once, I even called him by his grandfather's name. "Oh, Grandma," he said, barely concealing his glee. "We really need to get you somewhere safe." All while Patricia and I prepared the surprise of his life. Patricia Chen wasn't just any lawyer. She was brilliant, ruthless when needed, and she understood the assignment perfectly. But she wasn't working alone. Through her, I connected with a network of professionals who were happy to help. "Mrs. Whitman," Patricia said during one meeting, "I've been thinking. Marcus took money from a joint account, which is legal. But the Ferrari lease in your name without your permission? That's identity theft. The forged signatures on investment documents? Fraud. We could destroy him." "I don't want to destroy him," I said. "I want to educate him." She smiled. "Even better. Let me introduce you to some colleagues." Judge Harrison, who specialized in estate law, reviewed our plans. Michelle Foster, a bank president, helped structure the financial instruments. David Park, an IRS investigator, ensured everything was airtight and above board. "Your grandson's been bragging at bars," Jimmy Torres reported during one meeting, telling people his grandmother's loaded and losing her marbles. Says he'll inherit everything within the year. What else? He's in debt. The lifestyle's expensive, and he's been borrowing against his expectations. owes about 40 grand to various creditors who think he's good for it because of his inheritance. Patricia and I exchanged glances. Perfect, she said. We structured everything carefully. The will would be ironclad, uncontestable. But more than that, we created layers, trusts, conditions, requirements that would teach Marcus what I'd tried to teach him his whole life, but failed. Are you sure about this? Patricia asked as we finalized the documents. Once it's done, it can't be undone. I thought about the little boy who used to help me garden, who'd written me Mother's Day cards every year even though I was just his grandma. Then I thought about the man who'd looked me in the eye and said I was going to die anyway. I'm sure, I said. But I need one more thing. A videographer. I want to record a message for him, to be played when the will is read. Patricia smiled. I know just the person. Rebecca Martinez. Excellent work. The video took 3 hours to record. I wanted it perfect. Not cruel, not vindictive, but clear. A final lesson from teacher to student, from grandmother to grandson. Rebecca edited it beautifully, adding photos from over the years. Marcus as a baby in his mother's arms, as a boy on my shoulders, as a young man at graduation. The contrast with his current actions would speak for itself. This is powerful, Patricia said after watching the final cut. He'll never forget it. That's the point, I replied. Some lessons need to last a lifetime. With everything in place, we moved to the next phase of the plan. With my team assembled and plans finalized, we moved into action. First, Patricia filed paperwork to remove Marcus from all accounts, citing the fraudulent Ferrari lease as evidence of financial abuse. The bank, faced with potential liability, agreed immediately. Marcus received notice on a Friday afternoon. He called within minutes, screaming. What did you do? Protected myself, I said calmly. You can keep what you took. Consider it an early inheritance. But there won't be any more. You can't do this. I have rights. You have what you stole. Nothing more. He threatened lawyers, competency hearings, elder abuse claims. Patricia had prepared me for this. Let him, she'd said. Every document he files will show the money trail. Every accusation he makes will reveal what he's done. Marcus tried everything. He called Adult Protective Services, claiming I was being manipulated. They sent a social worker, Sandra Coleman, who was thorough and professional. Mrs. Whitman, Sandra said during her visit, I need to ask you some questions. Standard procedure. We went through the cognitive tests, the financial awareness questions, the independent living assessment. I passed everything with flying colors, then served her tea and cookies while we chatted. Your grandson seems very concerned, she said carefully. My grandson is very concerned about his finances, I corrected. That's not quite the same thing. Sandra's report was clear. Eleanor Whitman was of sound mind, managing her affairs appropriately, and showed no signs of abuse or neglect. If anything, she noted, Mrs. Whitman appeared to be protecting herself from potential financial exploitation. Marcus then tried the emotional approach. He appeared at my door on a Thursday evening, looking disheveled. No expensive suit this time. He wore jeans and an old college sweatshirt, trying to look like the boy I'd raised. Grandma, please. I'm sorry. I got carried away. The job, the pressure, I made mistakes. Yes, I agreed. You did. But we're family. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at him for a long moment. It meant everything to me. What did it mean to you? He couldn't answer that honestly, so he tried tears. But I'd taught third graders for 4 decades. I knew the difference between genuine remorse and performance. Marcus, I said gently, you took $127,000. You called me a burden. You tried to put me in a home to get my house. What family does that? I'll pay it back, he promised. With what? The money you borrowed from creditors? The promises you made about your inheritance? His face went pale. He didn't know I knew about the debts. How did you... I'm old, Marcus. Not stupid. There's a difference. I closed the door on his shocked face, then returned to my plans. While Marcus scrambled to salvage his crumbling financial house of cards, I made my next move. I listed my house for sale. The Century 21 sign went up on a Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, Marcus was at my door. You're selling? Where will you go? Somewhere smaller, I said vaguely. Easier to manage. His eyes calculated quickly. A house sale meant money. Money meant opportunity. Do you need help? I could handle the sale. Make sure you get the best price. Patricia's handling everything. His jaw clenched. Patricia's name had become his nightmare. You don't need a lawyer for a house sale. I find I need a lawyer for most things these days. I smiled. Funny how that happened. The house sold quickly. Cedar Falls was growing, and my neighborhood was desirable. The young couple who bought it reminded me of Harold and me 50 years ago, full of dreams and plans. I accepted their offer immediately, even though it wasn't the highest. Why? Patricia asked. The developer offered $20,000 more. Because they'll love it, I said. That house deserves love. With the sale proceeds and my remaining savings, I had about $300,000. Not bad for an old teacher everyone thought was losing her marbles. But instead of buying another house, I did something unexpected. I rented a small apartment in Riverside Towers, the independent living section of, wait for it, Sunset Gardens. The same facility Marcus had tried to push me into. You're joking, Patricia laughed when I told her. Not at all. It's actually lovely. I'll have my own apartment, privacy when I want it, activities when I don't, medical care if needed. And the best part? It's exactly what Marcus said I needed, just on my terms, not his. I moved in December, snow falling softly as I unpacked boxes in my new home. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a balcony overlooking the gardens. Perfect for one person. Perfect for the life I was choosing. Marcus found out through the grapevine. He appeared at Sunset Gardens the next day, confused and suspicious. You actually moved here? You were right, I said pleasantly. It's wonderful. Thank you for the recommendation. But the money from the house. Safe and sound, I assured him. Patricia's managing everything beautifully. He looked around my apartment. Nice but modest, comfortable but not luxurious. I could see him trying to calculate where the money was, how much was left, what his share would be. I'm glad you're happy, he managed. Oh, I am. And Marcus? I finished my will. Patricia has everything arranged. You don't need to worry about my affairs anymore. What's in it? The question burst out before he could stop himself. Lessons, I said simply. Lots and lots of lessons. Winter turned to spring, and Marcus's world unraveled thread by thread. Without access to my accounts, his lifestyle became unsustainable. The Ferrari was repossessed in March. Jimmy Torres sent me photos of Marcus arguing with the tow truck driver in the parking lot of his luxury apartment. By April, the apartment was gone too. He'd been 3 months behind on rent, floating on promises of coming money. Without my funds to pillage, those promises rang hollow. His creditors started calling, texting, showing up at his job, the real one he'd finally had to get, selling cell phones at the mall. I knew all this not because I was watching, though Jimmy kept me informed, but because Marcus started calling again, not angry anymore, desperate. Grandma, I'm in trouble. These people I borrowed from, they're not patient. Go to the police, I suggested. I can't. They're not. It wasn't exactly legal lending. Loan sharks. My grandson had borrowed from loan sharks against his expected inheritance. How much? 47,000. They're charging insane interest. I need help. I'm sorry to hear that, I said calmly. Perhaps you should sell some of your nice things? I already did. Everything's gone. Grandma, please. They threatened to break my legs. Then I suggest you run very fast. Harsh? Maybe. But what was I supposed to do? Enable him again? Teach him that consequences could be avoided with tears and manipulation? You have $300,000, he screamed. I could die. You have a job, I corrected. You have abilities. You have options. What you don't have is access to money you didn't earn. He hung up on me, but he didn't die, and his legs remained unbroken. Instead, he did what he should have done years ago. He worked. Double shifts at the phone store, pizza delivery at night, plasma donation on weekends. Slowly, painfully, he began paying off his debts. I watched from afar as my grandson learned what I'd known all along, that money earned tastes sweeter than money stolen, that pride in honest work beats shame in easy theft. Meanwhile, I thrived at Sunset Gardens. I taught watercolors on Wednesdays, led the book club on Fridays, made friends with Margaret, whose son visited every Sunday, and Dorothy, whose daughter called every night. Families who understood that love meant presence, not presents. You seem happy, Patricia noted during one of our meetings. I am, I said. For the first time in years, I'm not looking over my shoulder. And Marcus? Learning, I said. Finally learning. The call I'd been expecting came in June. Marcus, voice humble in a way I'd never heard. Grandma, I paid off the last of it. The debts took 6 months, but it's done. Congratulations, I said, and meant it. I wanted to ask, could I visit? Not for money, just to talk? I considered it. Sunday dinner, 5 p.m., don't be late. He wasn't. He arrived carrying grocery bags. I thought I'd cook, he said uncertainly. If that's okay? I watched my grandson move around my small kitchen, preparing the pot roast he'd once made to soften me up for theft. But his hands were different now, rougher from real work, steadier from hard lessons learned. I've been seeing a therapist, he said while chopping carrots, trying to understand why I did what I did. And entitlement, he said simply. I felt like the world owed me something for losing my parents, like your money was compensation for my pain. We ate in relative silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Sometimes the most important conversations happen in the spaces between words. The will, he finally said. I know I have no right to ask, but would you like to know what's in it? He nodded, bracing himself. Everything goes into the Eleanor and Harold Whitman Foundation, I said. Scholarships for students who've lost parents, financial literacy programs for young adults, elder fraud prevention services. His face went through several emotions before settling on understanding. Teaching to the end. It's what I do. And for me? I pulled out an envelope, Patricia's neat handwriting across the front. There's a trust, $25,000, but it comes with conditions. His hands shook as he read. The money would be released in installments over 10 years, but only if he met certain requirements. Maintain employment, volunteer 20 hours monthly at senior centers, attend financial responsibility classes, and, this was my favorite part, teach free financial literacy workshops to other young adults. You're making me become a teacher? I'm giving you the opportunity to understand value, I corrected. Money isn't just numbers, Marcus. It's time, sacrifice, choice. Every dollar represents a moment of someone's life. You took 127,000 moments from me. This is your chance to give some back. He was crying now, really crying. I'm sorry. God, Grandma, I'm so sorry. I know, I said gently. But sorry doesn't restore what was taken. Action does. That was 3 years ago. Marcus just completed his first workshop series at the community center, Financial Wisdom for Young Adults. He visits every Sunday now, bringing groceries he pays for with money he earned. We cook together, talk about his students, plan for the foundation that will launch when I'm gone. My will sits in Patricia's safe, ready to deploy its lessons when I'm gone. But the real legacy? It's already working.